Hey guys, Laurel here and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you have been here before. I am here today to film something that is going to be a little bit difficult to talk about, a little bit awkward, a little bit outside my normal comfort zone, and a little bit TMI. So for any family or friends who are here, thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate that you guys watch my videos, but this is probably going to be a little bit more information than you wanted to know about me. And although I appreciate you being here, I invite you to click away. It's easier sometimes to talk to strangers about these sort of things than to people you actually know and have to face in your day-to-day life. So that's your warning. Here we go into the TMI. I wanted to sit down today and talk about my breastfeeding story. For those of you who don't know me, I have a almost 6-year-old son, an almost 3-year-old son, and I am 7 months pregnant with baby boy number 3. So I have a bit of an arsenal of experience to bring to the table, and I just wanted to give a bit of history, talk about what my plans are for this baby, and give maybe some, I wouldn't call them tips because I'm definitely not an expert, as you'll come to find out when I tell you my story, but just talk about some things that I've learned along the way that may be helpful to any of you who are first-time moms or struggling with breastfeeding, or struggling with the decision not to breastfeed. So let's just jump right in. Starting with my almost 6-year-old son, I just assumed when I was pregnant with him that I would breastfeed. I just kind of assumed that it came naturally, that it was something I was supposed to do and my body would do what it was supposed to do and everything would be fine. I wasn't young when I was pregnant with him. I was 23 when he was born. My husband and I were married. I was certainly not naive by any means, but I didn't know any other mamas at the time. My sister was pregnant with my nephew and was a couple months ahead of me, but I didn't have any experience really with newborn babies very close to me. So I just kind of took it as a given that moms had babies and breastfed, and that's just the way it was. And sometimes for whatever reason moms decided to formula feed, and that was okay too. I never had any judgment going into it. I never had any really strong convictions. I just planned to breastfeed, and that's what I thought I was going to do. When my son arrived, I started nursing him in the hospital. He was a vaginal birth, but it was rather complicated. I did have some issues afterwards, but I was able to start nursing him almost right away, and that was fine. And I had colostrum already. That was not an issue for me. And then 3 days later, my milk came in, and holy moly, was that something I wasn't expecting. As I said, I didn't know any nursing mamas, so that was a bit of a surprise how big my chest got and how full and how hard when he hadn't nursed and all of those sorts of things. That was all new to me. Bit of a surprise. But once I started nursing him, I was having a lot of pain. A lot of pain. And I started doing some research finally at that point and realized that it's normal. They're gonna be sore the first couple weeks, blah, 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 all that stuff that you hear. But this didn't seem like what people were talking about to be normal. Everything that I read said that it's normal for it to be uncomfortable, it's normal for there to be a little bit of pain, you may have a little bit of like cracks and bleeding, but it shouldn't be excessive, etc. For me, I didn't even really experience a ton of the issues of cracking and bleeding and that sort of thing, but I was just in absolute agony. He nursed every hour and a half for 45 minutes. It's a lot of nursing and not a lot of time in between. And I tried tons of positions. I tried switching breasts halfway through. I tried just feeding on one breast per feed. I tried everything I could possibly think of. I did a ton more research, and I was just in so much pain. And I think a lot of it was to do with how long and how frequently he was nursing. And I'm not really sure what the reason for that was, because I had an ample milk supply as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know whether he was having trouble getting it out. My letdown wasn't really working for him. I don't know if he had a bad latch. The lactation consultant I saw in the hospital before we left said that my latch was good. So I trusted her and assumed my latch was good. And I just could not do anything to ease the pain. I was crying every time I nursed him. Even with using nipple shields, I was crying. And this continued for 2 weeks of being in this agony, crying. And when you're in that much pain, and I know it wasn't his fault, I'm not saying it was his fault at all, but when you're in that much pain and he was causing it, I almost started to resent him, and it really, really affected my bond with him. I loved him, I snuggled him, I cuddled him and kissed him, and like, please don't take this the wrong way at all. I was not acting out what I was feeling, but I was resenting him because he was causing me so much pain, and no matter what I tried to do, I didn't seem to be able to ease it. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, oh, it's normal, blah, 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 you know, a typical thing that family doctors do, and suggested nipple cream and breast nipple shields and all these things that I'd already tried. I asked the doctor to check for a lip tie, check for a tongue tie. She said she didn't see anything, and I took her at her word, and that was my mistake. I should have reached out. I should have gone to see another lactation consultant. I should have gone to a Laurel League meeting. I should have spoken to more people. I should have done something, and I didn't, because by the point that I saw my family doctor, I had kind of already started wrapping my mind around the idea of giving up and switching to formula. I just couldn't. I couldn't even, as the kids say these days. I wasn't getting any sleep because he was nursing so often. I was in agony from the nursing. I was an emotional wreck because of the pain and the exhaustion and these awful feelings that I had towards my baby, who I loved so much. It was hard. And being young and being someone who's pretty private with their feelings as it is, like, I'm not a crier, I'm not someone who will go talk to family members or friends very easily, especially in person, and I just kind of bottled it all up, and I couldn't do it anymore. So after 3 weeks of really doing what I thought was my best at the time, I gave up and I switched to formula. And honestly, I didn't feel a ton of the stigma. I didn't feel super ashamed. I didn't feel like a failure as a mom. A lot of those things that moms do confess to feeling when they switch to formula. I didn't really feel any of those things because I was so relieved. After my milk dried up, I wasn't in pain anymore. Took a couple days, and those days were pretty bad. But I wasn't in pain anymore. Everything healed up. I was getting to sleep. He was eating and sleeping for 3-4 hour stretches. I was able to rest. I was able to regain all my mental faculties and finally feel better and start enjoying this beautiful baby that I had. And it was a night and day difference. And honestly, with my first son, I feel like formula really saved me. And that's something that I know is common among moms who have issues breastfeeding for whatever reason and switch to formula, and sometimes it's just such a relief. and it feels like it's your saving grace. And I wanted to really reiterate that to you, any of you who are watching who are struggling with breastfeeding or are scared to breastfeed or are really worried about wanting to formula feed but feeling guilt and shame and all of the stigma that society puts on us with breast is best and all of these sorts of things. Yes, breast milk is the healthiest option for your baby if it's working for you and your baby. If you're on the verge of a mental breakdown because it's not working for you, then breast is not best for your baby. You need to be healthy and happy to be able to properly care for your baby and keep your baby healthy and happy. So at that point, breast is not best, and you need to make that decision for your family, and you need to not feel guilty about it. I want you to know that there are tons of people out there who will support you, who will not judge you for your decision, and that you need to make that decision and do what's right for you and your baby. When I got pregnant with my second son, Reed, I honestly didn't even consider breastfeeding. It was at the back of my mind. It wasn't even something I really gave a second thought to. It had been that traumatic for me the first time around that I just didn't even want to bother trying. I didn't think that the benefits were worth all the risks to my health, my sanity, my mothering experience. So as we got closer to the due date, I bought bottles and I bought formula, and that's just what we did. I had a C-section, and due to a unrelated complication, ended up on morphine, and I wouldn't have wanted to breastfeed him while being on morphine anyways, even though I do believe it's considered safe to be on morphine. Don't quote me on that, but that wouldn't have been something I would have been comfortable with anyway. So he was born and we started feeding him bottles right at the hospital. And I honestly did not feel guilty, did not feel one bit of shame. In my mind, I made the right decision for my son and for myself, and I was completely content with that. And he was a formula fed baby, but I was a baby wearer and a cloth diaper, and I was doing all of these other things that I thought to be best for my baby, and formula feeding was just one of those decisions that I made along the way. And I was okay with that until I moved to where we live now. It's a small town. It's I don't want to say hipster, because it's not a downtown metropolis where there's hipsters, but it has that sort of vibe. There's a little downtown core, there's a lot of coffee shops, there's a lot of really outdoorsy people. The beach scene is kind of all surfers and hippie type people, and I love all those type of people. I'm not judging at all. I'm just trying to give you a bit of a description of where I'm coming from. So when I moved here, a lot of the mamas are really crunchy, and they're all baby wearers, they're all cloth diapers, and they're all breastfeeders. A lot of them are extended breastfeeders up to, 3 years or so. And I've made some friends here, and a lot of the mamas have been super, super nice to me. I'm actually running the baby wearing group, and a lot of the mamas are in that group. Hi, if any of you guys are watching. But to be 100% honest, I went to one meetup really shortly after I moved here, like probably a month or so after we moved here. And I was the only one that was bottle feeding. Had a lot of the women ask me why I was bottle feeding, why I was formula feeding, how come he hadn't been breastfed. And they weren't asking rudely by any means. These mamas were super nice to me, but I just felt like an outsider, I guess. I felt that I was doing something that they didn't consider to be the right thing to do. Even though they weren't being judgy or mean by any means, I just felt sort of like I didn't fit in really with the group because I had this one thing that was so different, even though all of our other parenting choices and interests and all those sorts of things really lined up. And that's the first time that I really started feeling a little bit of guilt or shame about formula feeding Reed, and more so that I didn't try at all. Not that I formula fed him, because I still feel no guilt or shame about formula feeding my first son Oliver, but really just that I didn't try. I didn't give it a chance. I didn't see if it could have gone better. I didn't use the new knowledge that I had, being 3 years older and 3 years wiser and having way more experience with babies and nursing mamas and all of those things, that I didn't try. And when I got pregnant with my third son, I originally thought I was gonna just formula feed because that's what had worked for our family. That was what we were used to. And despite the little bit of guilt that I felt about Reed, it wasn't enough to deter me from this thing that had worked so well for us and really been a saving grace for me. So I thought I was gonna formula feed. I was watching all of these vlogger mamas that I love breastfeed on their videos and be successful, and I thought, why can't that be me? Why can't I be successful? Even though I've had struggles in the past, what went wrong and how can I fix it, and how could I possibly be successful for this baby? This is my last baby, 100% it's my last baby. I'm hoping to have my tubes removed when I have my C-section done, so we are done. And I'm feeling like maybe I missed out on a bit of that experience. I myself am a crunchy mama now. I'm a baby wearer, I'm a cloth diaperer, I run the baby wearing group. We live in this small town, and once I'm not pregnant, I'm hoping to plant gardens in the backyard, and I would love to have like chickens and goats, but they're not allowed where we live. But I'm much more natural minded and in that phase of life, and I'm feeling like I missed out on something that's supposed to be natural, something our body is supposed to do, and I want to try. So I was trying to figure out what went wrong the first time, and I started by looking in my son's mouth. This is gonna sound weird because he's almost 6, but he brushes his own teeth in the morning before school while I'm busy making lunches and that sort of thing, and my husband puts the boys to bed because that's the only time of the day he gets to see them. So he does the toothbrushing at night. So I don't really get a good look in his mouth all that often for any reason. And I took a good look in there, and to me, I don't know the technical terms, but to me it looks like he has an upper lip tie, like a severe upper lip tie, and maybe a little bit of tongue tie under here. And if I think it looks like that, then how could my family doctor have missed it? How could the lactation consultant at the hospital have missed it? How could all the nurses that checked his breastfeeding before we left miss it? I don't know. So I started doing a lot more research, watching videos, reading books, looking up Dr. Jack Newman, who is at the forefront of the breastfeeding movement, if you want to call it that, breastfeeding studies, and he has a clinic in Toronto. And it seems like, unbeknownst to me, lots of lactation consultants are not actually certified in the way that they should be, and don't actually specialize in tongue and lip ties. So this is something that, which is not even their fault necessarily, they don't have enough knowledge on, and certainly family doctors are not, and certainly nurses are not. So I think that was maybe the cause of all the pain, was that he had a tongue and a lip tie, which was causing a bad latch, which was causing me agony, was also probably causing his nursing to be ineffective which is why he was nursing for so long and so frequently. So that's what makes sense to me in my head. Obviously, I haven't had a certified lactation consultant look at him anytime recently. So that's what my feelings are. That's what I'm guessing. So now I'm thinking, maybe I could have fed Reed. Maybe he doesn't have those issues. Maybe he would have nursed fine. I don't know. I'm trying not to dwell on it now, but I am definitely going to try to nurse this baby. And that has been a really scary realization for me because I'm worried about how much it's gonna hurt. I'm worried about having issues like a tongue and a lip tie, because if your genetics are predisposed to them, if one child has them, it's more likely that future children will have them. So it's likely this baby could possibly have them if that's what Oliver has. And that kind of worries me. Means traveling to see these certified lactation consultants, traveling to potentially get his tongue and lip tied lasered. It's a little nerve-wracking, honestly. And I'm glad that I came to the decision, but it's causing me a lot of anxiety. So I would love, love, love to hear your stories down below, to hear your positive breastfeeding stories, your overcomer stories, and I would love to support some of you who are struggling with your decision. And while I think fed is best, breast is great, but there is nothing wrong with choosing formula if that's what you need to do for your family. And if I have to end up formula feeding after trying to nurse, I'm going to be totally okay with that. I'm going to be content that I gave it a shot. I'm going to feel good in my decisions. I'm not going to feel guilty. And that's just the mindset that I have to keep. But in the meantime, I have set myself up for success. I've been doing the research. I've been watching videos. I've been reading books. I have an acquaintance who actually just got certified. I will be able to see her as soon as he's born and hopefully get any sort of help that I need and get any issues sorted out right away so that we can potentially have a successful breastfeeding story for you guys in the future. I would love to come back with an update and say it's worked and we're breastfeeding and everything's going great. Whether that'll happen or not, I'm not sure. But for right now, the plan is to try. The plan is to be proud that I've tried and to not feel guilt or shame if it doesn't work for me. And that's my breastfeeding story. That is where I'm coming from with my history, and that is my plans for the future. And I would love to hear your stories down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've made it all the way to the end, I think it's gonna be really long. So bravo, way to make it to the end of the video. And I look forward to chatting with you guys down below. I will see you in my next one. Have a good day. Bye.